Are you tired of losing as Devil Dinosaur and feeling like you're just a giant target for the enemy team? Because Devil Dinosaur is not like a regular tank. You can't just run forward, bite random people, throw your cooldowns out, and expect to survive. If you do that, you're going to get melted. But once you understand how his bleed works, when to grab, who to throw, and how to turn one kidnap into a full team fight win, Devil Dinosaur can completely control the lobby. So stay locked in, because I got you. In this guide, I'm going to go over his damage, his bleed numbers, how each ability works, the combos you actually need, how to fight another Devil Dinosaur, and the best heroes to ban before you lock him in. The main thing you need to understand with Devil Dinosaur is bleed. His bleed does 1.5% of the target's max health per tick, and it ticks 2 times per second. So that's 3% of their max health every second. And since the bleed lasts 4 seconds, if the bleed plays out, that's 12% of their max health. That is why Devil Dinosaur is so strong against tanks. He's literally a tank buster. If you bite a squishy, it hurts. But if you bite a tank, that percent damage starts adding up fast. And on top of that, when Devil Dinosaur damages bleeding enemies, he gains bonus health. So the whole character comes down to one simple loop. Apply bleed, force pressure, build bonus health, and keep taking space. If you're not applying bleed, you're just a giant hitbox. If you're applying bleed and using your cooldowns in the right order, now the enemy team has to deal with you. Devil Dinosaur has 2 passives you need to understand. The first one helps him survive being huge. He takes reduced headshot damage, he can't be knocked around by a lot of displacement effects, and enemies get less ult charge from shooting him. That matters because with a hitbox that big, he would be a walking ult battery without it. But don't let that make you overconfident. You still need cover, you still need corners, you still need your supports, and you still need to manage your cooldowns. The second passive is where his real survivability comes from. When you deal damage to bleeding enemies, you gain bonus health. That means you don't just want to stand around holding space. You want to keep bleed active, keep pressure on the front line, and use that bonus health to stay in the fight longer. Now, a quick thing about his melee. Devil Dinosaur's melee is his tail whip. I've seen some people talk about flicking your mouse around to weave tail whip damage between bites. Technically, you can do that. But realistically, unless you're on a super fast sensitivity or you're really clean on mouse and keyboard, I don't think that makes sense for most players. The better use is when enemies are naturally around you. If you kidnap somebody and now you have one enemy in front of you and another behind you, that's when the tail whip makes sense. Or if you pop your ult and you're running through the enemy backline surrounded by people, that tail hitbox can help you hit targets behind you while you keep moving. So don't force the tail whip just to look flashy. Use it when your positioning already makes it useful. Now, your primary bite does 75 damage and applies bleed. This is your fastest and most reliable way to start your pressure. And remember, that bleed does 1.5% max health per tick, ticks 2 times per second, and lasts 4 seconds. So if the full bleed plays out, the target can lose 12% of their max health just from the bleed. That's why the main rule is bleed first, combo second. If you're close enough to bite first. Don't throw out all your cooldowns before the enemy is bleeding. You want bleed active before the grab, before the feast, and before you fully commit. Now, your impact beam is your range setup tool. It deals damage over time, applies bleed, slows the target, and can knock flying heroes out of the air. This is what lets Devil Dinosaur pressure people before he gets in a bite range. Use beam when someone is playing too far back, when a flyer is in the air, or when you want to mark a target before you pounce. The beam uses a meter, so you can't just spam it forever. And if you only tap it, you may not get the value you need. You usually want to hold it on someone for about 1 to 2 seconds so the bleed actually applies and sets up the rest of your combo. Think of the beam like this. You're marking the target before you go in. And against flyers, this is one of your best tools. You don't always have to kill them yourself. Sometimes just knocking them down or forcing them away is enough to win space for your team. Now, your Pounce does 50 damage, but the damage is not why his ability is scary. The scary part is the grab. If the enemy is already bleeding, Devil Dinosaur can clamp onto them and throw them. That means this is not just a movement ability, this is your kidnap tool. The basic idea is bleed them, pounce, grab them, turn, throw them backwards into your team, bite again to reapply bleed, then you feast. That bite after the grab matters, because if you throw them and then go straight into the feast without keeping bleed active, you can lose damage and bonus health value. So after the grab, get that bite in again if you can. Also, where you look changes the pounce. Look down for a shorter jump, look straight for a medium jump, look up for a longer jump. That matters because you don't always want to launch yourself too deep. Sometimes you just need a short grab in the brawl. Other times, you need a longer jump to reach high ground or chase someone backing up. But don't waste this ability. Unless you have bleed applied, your team is ready, or you're about to ult, don't just pounce in for no reason. If you pounce in with no setup, you're probably going to get farmed. Now, your barrier has 450 health, lasts up to 6 seconds, blocks incoming damage, follows you, and slows enemies caught inside by 15% for 2 seconds. Most people use it as a panic button, and sometimes you have to, but the better use is after the kidnap. You grab someone, throw them into your team, bite again to keep bleed active, then use your barrier to cut off their help. That makes it harder for their supports to heal them and harder for their team to save them. You can also use your body here. Devil Dinosaur is huge, so after you throw someone in, stand between them and their supports. You can block direct healing angles just by being in the way. But another huge use for buddy barrier is blocking big team fight ults. If the enemy pops something like Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, Magneto, Iron Man, or any other ultimate that can be blocked by a shield, buddy barrier can save your team if you time it right. So don't only think of your barrier as a selfish defense cooldown. It can protect your push, block burst damage, stop big ult damage, and buy your team enough time to survive a fight that should have been lost. But once barrier is gone, you're a giant target again, so don't waste it early. Your Frenzied Feast is your burst and sustain tool. The first 4 bites do 15 damage each, and the 5th bite does 30 damage. So if every hit lands, that's 90 base damage. But the real value comes when the target is bleeding. Against a bleeding target, the first 4 hits add 5% of the target's max health, and the 5th hit adds 10% of their max health. That means a full feast on a bleeding target adds up to 30% max health damage on top of the 90 base damage. That is why you do not want to use feast first. You want to use it after bleed is already applied. A clean sequence is bite or beam to apply bleed, pounce and throw, bite again, then feast. That way you're getting bite damage, bleed damage, feast damage, and percentage health feast damage, and bonus health regeneration. This is especially nasty against tanks, because when you combine the bleed damage with the full feast damage, you can burn a huge chunk of a tank's health while building bonus health for yourself. Your ultimate is your lobby control button. It costs 3400 energy, gives Devil Dinosaur a 70% movement speed boost, creates stomps around him, launches enemies, applies bleed, and sends out waves that slow people. The stomp field has an 8-meter radius, so anybody near you is under pressure. The stomp damage itself is only 10 damage, but the value is not just the damage numbers. The stomp field spawns every 0.3 seconds, and enemies can get launched every 0.8 seconds. So while you're running through the enemy team, you're constantly disrupting them, applying bleed, slowing them, and forcing them to move. And during your ultimate, your cooldowns get way better. Frenzy Feast gets reduced by a 1-second cooldown, and your Pounce gets reduced to a 4-second cooldown. So when you ult, don't just run around doing nothing. You should be moving, biting, feasting, grabbing, throwing, and making the enemy team panic. Use your ult when enemies are grouped, stuck on objective, trapped in a choke, or when your team is ready to push. And don't ult when your team is dead. Don't ult from so far away that everyone can just back up. A good ult looks like this. Pop your ult near the fight, run through the back line, use feast almost every time it comes up, use pounce to chase or throw targets back, drop barrier when they start focusing you, and keep moving so the stomp field keeps causing problems. Sometimes your ult isn't about killing everybody yourself. Sometimes it's about breaking the enemy formation so your team can clean up. Now your team up is with Punisher. Devil Dinosaur gets 100 extra max health, and Punisher can ride on his back. This can be strong if the Punisher knows what he's doing. You create space, Punisher adds damage, and your barrier helps both of you survive the push. But don't waste the team up by standing around. If Punisher's on your back, you need to take space, force brawls, and give him targets to shoot. Devil Dinosaur also absorbs some of the damage applied to Punisher as well. Now real quick, if you're trying to improve at games like Marvel Rivals and you don't want to keep guessing what went wrong, I built an AI gaming coach called GameSenseAI. The goal is to help players review their gameplay, understand their mistakes, get personalized feedback, and figure out what they should work on next. Because a lot of players don't lose because they have bad mechanics, they lose because they don't know what they're doing wrong in the middle of the fight. Maybe you're engaging too early, maybe you're wasting cooldowns, maybe you're not calling out your grabs, maybe your positioning is making you easy to punish. GameSenseAI is built to help you catch those mistakes faster so you can stop guessing and start improving with a real plan. I'll have more info linked in the description. Now let's get back to the combos. Now your main combo is your Kidnap combo. This is the main combo you need to learn. Apply bleed first, pounce and throw the target backward into your team, bite again to reapply or refresh the bleed, use barrier to cut off their help, then use feast while they're bleeding. That's how you turn one overextended player into a free kill. And when you do this, call it out. Say, I'm grabbing the tank, I'm throwing Devil back, I got support, focus them, burn this guy. Don't silently throw someone into your team and then wonder why nobody shot them. Your team needs to know when the kidnap is happening. That's really the main combo you want to do with Devil Dinosaur. You're either going to bite or use your beam. And that's pretty much it. Now, don't forget, when you're doing this, use your tail whip as well if people are behind you. That way you can get that extra damage on them. Now, when you're going against another Devil Dinosaur, you got to kind of play it a little bit differently sometimes. If the enemy Devil grabs you first and throws you in, don't panic. A lot of players waste their grab first and think they won the fight. But if your team is ready, you can punish them. Once you recover, bite him to apply bleed, grab him back, throw him into your team, bite again to refresh the bleed, and then feast. And call it out. Say, focus Devil, I'm throwing him back, burn him now. In the mirror, whoever wastes his Pounce first usually gives the other Devil Dinosaur a chance to punish. So stay calm, let him overcommit, then make him pay for it. Also, side note when kidnapping tanks. A lot of times you want to wait till their health is low before you grab them. That way you can pull them back into your team, block off their heals, and get that kill. If you grab too early, sometimes you leave enough time for them to get healed up and get back to their team. So make sure you're timing it correctly. Devil Dinosaur is an aggressive brawl tank, but aggressive does not mean brainless. You want to fight around chokes, objectives, corners, doorways, and tight spaces. You do not want to stand in long open sight lines where the enemy team can farm your giant hitbox. Your default target is usually the enemy tank because your bleed and feast damage are strong into high health targets. But if a support or DPS is out of position, grab them. The perfect Devil Dinosaur fight looks like this. Walk up using cover, apply bleed, wait for someone to overstep, grab them and throw them backward. Bite again, barrier off their health, feast while they're bleeding, then use your bonus health to keep taking space. That's the rhythm. You are not trying just to exist on point. You're trying to make the enemy team uncomfortable. Make their tank scared to walk up, make their support scared to stand close, make their DPS turn around when you ult. That's how you control the lobby. Now, let's talk about bans. When you're playing Devil Dinosaur, you want to ban heroes that punish big bodies, spam poke damage, or get extra value because you're standing near your team. The biggest one I'd look at first is Moon Knight. Moon Knight is a problem because Devil Dinosaur is a huge target, and if your team is playing around you, Moon Knight can bounce damage around you and everyone nearby. You basically become a giant onk. So if you're locking Devil Dinosaur, Moon Knight is one of the first bans I would think about. After that, look at heroes like Punisher, Hela, Star-Lord, Phoenix, and Squirrel Girl. A good Punisher will shred your hitbox completely the entire game. Hela is dangerous because strong poke into huge body is always a problem. Same with Phoenix. Now Star-Lord can keep repositioning, poking you from different angles and making it hard for you to pin him down. And Squirrel Girl is annoying because her spam damage can punish you and your team when you're trying to brawl or hold space. The overall rule is ban heroes that can farm your size from the distance. Devil Dinosaur wants to brawl, but if the enemy team has too much poke, you can get melted before you ever get to play the fight. So my main ban priority would be Moon Knight, Punisher, Hela, Phoenix, Star-Lord, Squirrel Girl. And after that, any hero that does a lot of poke damage or can constantly farm your hitbox before you close the gap. Now before you lock in on Devil Dinosaur, remember this. Don't pounce first unless you have a reason. Apply bleed before you're using your big cooldowns. After you grab, bite again to keep your bleed active. Throw enemies backward into your team. Use barrier to isolate, not just to survive. Call out your grab, fight near cover, don't ult when your team can't follow up, and ban poke heavy heroes, especially Moon Knight, because your size can turn you into a giant damage onk for the enemy team. So to wrap this up, Devil Dinosaur is not strong just because he's big. He's strong because he controls space. He applies bleed, grabs enemies out of position, blocks their healing, and turns one mistake into a team fight win. Your main rhythm is simple. Bleed, grab, throw back, bite again, barrier, feast. Once you get that rhythm down, Devil Dinosaur becomes one of the most annoying brawl tanks in the game. Thanks for watching and happy gaming.